When we are no longer trying to prove ourselves or show how smart we are, or show how successful we are, and we're just there in that moment of meeting another person, whether it be one person or 10,000 people, but we're actually caring about those 10,000 people because we're on a stage, we're caring about them, we're caring about what's happening for them, we become far more powerful than when we're just sitting there talking about all that we know or what you could do differently because I figured it all out. And that's a big shift for people to realize.
2, 1, 0.
Hello and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. This is your host, Orion, and today we're going to talk about money and about your relationship with money and how when you heal your relationship with money, you create so much more abundance in your life and it becomes effortless. Leisa Peterson is on a mission to help 1 million people elevate their financial consciousness. As a money coach, business consultant, and author, Leisa hosts the Mindful Millionaire podcast as well as virtual workshops and deep dive retreats. Her masterful blend of sound financial strategy and mindfulness training helps people break free of patterns of lack, scarcity, and money fears, allowing them to finally lead the rewarding, fulfilling, and abundant lives they most desire. Noted in Forbes as one of 10 women driving growth in wealth management and investing, Leisa has appeared on Gaia Media Network and in the Wall Street Journal and more. And in this episode, we talked about how to heal your money blocks. What are money blocks? How to heal your story around money. We even talked about past life regression and how can that affect your money story. How to let go and let God, and more and more. And now, without further ado, on to the show. Hi, Leisa, and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Orion. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, before we begin, can you share your origin story and what brought you to what you're doing today?
Great question. It's always fun. I'm just dropping in. Let's see. I was a financial advisor and worked in the money business for 25 years, now over 30 years, 3 decades, and helping people with money, practically speaking, for many years. And unfortunately, I had a very tragic event happen in 2013 that caused me to realize that while I could help people in investing and, getting mortgages and all these things that I was involved in, it wasn't the impact that I was really here to make. It was more about helping people look inside of their relationship with money. What was happening? Why would they make the same decisions over and over again that would get them into trouble? Or why were some people so good with money? What were the things that they were doing that we all needed to replicate? I became very, I'll say, obsessed about that question of how can we have more abundance in our lives? How can we get rid of scarcity patterns? Can we get rid of scarcity patterns? And as a result of those questions, I realized I wanted to start this company, Wealth Clinic, and it's been an incredible ride ever since.
Yes. What was your relationship to money when you were younger compared to today?
I have always been very good with money, saving, investing, taking care of it. My problem was I was obsessed with it and I felt like more is better. And I didn't understand that the way that I was operating with money was coming from a place of fear of not having it and what would happen if I didn't have it. And what has changed and shifted so dramatically that even led up to what has happened for my husband and I in this past few months is we realized that we have enough money, that we are able to make completely different choices about our lives, but reaching this place of not just sufficiency, but plenty. Like we feel that we have plenty of money and we live that way. That doesn't mean that we're the people at the bar buying the whole bar drinks. It doesn't mean that we're irresponsible with the way that we spend our money. It just means that we have enough to take care of ourselves for the rest of our lives and do the things that are most important to us. And it's not even something that I can totally explain. I try my best to explain it, but when we make a shift like what I'm talking about, it feels like living a completely different life of inside of abundance. All I see is possibility and opportunity, and it's pretty amazing in contrast to living in lack and there's never enough.
What are your clients' biggest blocks when it comes to money?
It isn't about the money. It is about how they see themselves in the world, how they are judging themselves. How are they judging success? So the people, by the time somebody comes to me now, they've reached a certain level of financial success or business success. But what they're realizing is that the things that got them to where they're at are not actually going to create the kind of happiness and fulfillment and joy that they really want. And they know that this relationship that they have with money has something to do with it. So they need to change the way that they're thinking and experiencing money, and even the way that they judge success, from being how much do you know? Who are the people that you know? Who do you hang out with? Like, all of those things are at a lower level than what happens to us when we realize that we are enough, that we can come from a place of love, that we actually are the most powerful people in the room when it's not all about us and all about, us getting what we need. So people come to me when they're ready to make a big transition in their life of doing and ready to step into being. And funny enough, money has a lot to do with that journey.
What do you mean we are the most powerful people in the room when it's not about other people or something like that?
When it's not just about our problems, what we want to get. Yeah. Most people, well, all of us are on a journey, and early in life, we're trying to learn things. We're trying to figure out how do we provide more value to others through the efforts in our business, for example, right? But and many times there's a lot of proving that goes on in these conversations. And what I've realized is that when we're so busy proving that we're viable or that we're helpful or that we're smart or that we're capable, we are so focused on ourselves that we're not realizing that the true power in life is going to come from curiosity, from interest, from openness, from a beginner mindset. When, I'll make it very clear. We think that it's because of what people have achieved oftentimes that they are very successful and powerful. But really, just because somebody has achieved a whole bunch of stuff or has a lot of money does not actually mean that they're going to have any impact in another person's life. That's where true power, like, are you actually making an impact? Are you actually shifting people in a positive way, right? The place that I live in is not about shifting people in hoping that they become more greedy or something like that. Like, this is about shifting people in positive ways, making a lasting impact in someone's life in a positive way. But let's say you were to come in contact with Elon Musk and you met him and all he did was talk about himself. You would not walk away from that conversation thinking, wow, I'm so impressed by Elon Musk. You might think, yeah, he's pretty amazing. But if Elon Musk came to you and started asking you questions about you and was curious about who you are and what you're doing in the world, you would all of a sudden be a big fan of Elon Musk. It's literally that simple. When we are no longer trying to prove ourselves or show how smart we are, or show how successful we are, and we're just there in that moment of meeting another person, whether it be one person or 10,000 people, but we're actually caring about those 10,000 people because we're on a stage. We're caring about them. We're caring about what's happening for them. We become far more powerful than when we're just sitting there talking about all that we know or what you could do differently because I figured it all out. And that's a big shift for people to realize.
And how do you know what's the line between just sitting there and like being just interested in someone else to actually maybe promoting yourself a little bit or sharing about yourself a little bit?
Mm-hmm. It's in the questions that we ask.
For example?
It's in the understanding of where we're at. Like what I've seen over and over and over again is the insightful way that we understand people, that we understand what's most important to them. The more we spend time, right? Because all of this, underneath all of this, is the more you understand yourself, the better it is that you can understand other people, because we are not different. So as you take the things that you've learned about yourself and you're able to meet someone or speak from a stage, and you're so in touch with what's going on inside of them because you know yourself so well, the questions that you ask, the things that you say come from a deeply insightful place of self-understanding and self-realization. And that is what changes the context of what comes next.
What if you're not interested in people?
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody's got their own path in life, and it's not my path, so I can't really speak to what happens. I'm my whole life I've always been interested in other people. So the context of my life is through that lens. What if you're not interested? I'd have to ask, like, why not? Like, many times we're so consumed with ourselves because we have a lot of trauma and we have a lot of problems and we have a lot of difficulty, and it's taking up so much space in our lives that there's no space left for anybody else. And that is not a powerful person in the world.
Yeah, I found myself actually doing that, being really interested in other people, genuinely, actually. And at some occasions, I find myself just the person in front of me just talk about themselves the whole time and being like so like not even remotely interested in what I do. They're just there to speak their mind, to show how great they are. And I'm just standing there looking at them and nodding, and it's interesting, but it's like you said, it's not as interesting when you actually have a genuine conversation and people do care more about each other.
Mm-hmm. Well, it brings up a good point, right? Because this isn't just about us. This is about finding the people that we really resonate with, right? So if you're having a conversation and you're interested in another person and all they care about is themselves, it's probably not a great match, period. No matter how hard you try to work with this person or find common ground, you're already getting the answer that this is probably not the best place. You do not share core values with this person, because one of your core values is to learn and understand and have connective conversations with people. That person only cares about themselves. Fine, all good, but you're not gonna, there's no match there because their core value is about them. It's not about learning about you.
Right. Do you find yourself like being a magnet for people because of all the work that you did for yourself? Do you feel like people approach you more because of whatever energy you emanate?
Yes, I do. And it's so funny because I've spent a lifetime of being interested in people and, reading all those books, going back to Norman Vincent Peale and How to Win Friends and, influence people and all these things for many years. And those things helped. They get your foot in the door. But I was motivated still from my own weakness or my own trauma or my own desire to have friends or to feel connected. But what's funny about it is the more I let go of the expectation of what was going to happen from these conversations, the more I let go of any expectation, the more people show up in true, beautiful communion. And what I mean by that is the less I expect of other people, the more they show up and we just get to be together. Now, does business happen? Heck yeah. But the business is not because I tried to sell somebody something. It's because they're like, oh my gosh, you're offering this retreat in Sedona. I just came here and got to spend a day with you. And it was so beautiful and loving. And I saw a side of myself that I never got to see before because we're friends. I mean, we're friends and they've been clients in the past. But then they're like, oh, you're offering a, 4-day retreat. Like, can I come to that? Not because I sold them, but because they know how they're going to feel in my presence. And they know that the people that I attract are the same way. So they're going to feel so good about the environment. But what I also want to say that I'm still unpacking and understanding is I live in Sedona. People do like to come and visit Sedona a lot. But I've never witnessed something where like every single week there's somebody coming to visit. My husband's like, everybody wants to visit. I'm like, I just want to hang out and love on people. And I think it's a testament to who I'm being more than it is about what I'm doing in the world now.
What do you do in your 4-day retreats?
What do I do? All kinds of cool things. So I've got a couple of retreats at the end of the year that are going to be more spiritual in nature. And what do I mean by that? They are, 4 days of looking inside at who you have been and who you wish to become. So really unpacking that. But because of my expertise in money and money management, in 2024, my plan is to do more of the things that I've been doing for myself that have allowed us to semi-retire, in our mid-50s. We could have done it 10 years ago, but there were things that like I wanted to write my book and I wanted to do some other stuff. But financially, what I've learned is for a lot of entrepreneurs, they know how to be entrepreneurs. They know how to do that thing, but they have maybe not had enough exposure to how to become an investor. And it's not just about putting your money in a stock account or something like that. Like there's a whole shift in mindset of how do you take money from what you're earning in your business and really channel it into a whole new endeavor. And I love teaching people about that mindset shift of becoming an investor so that you can or you can't. I mean, you don't have to work anymore. You have plenty of money coming from your investments. And then it's a choice about, what you do in your business. I think it's a very luxurious position, and I really enjoy helping people make those transitions. Or what kinds of investments do we want to be looking at? I work with a lot of women. There are certain investments that I, as a woman, have enjoyed more than others, and there's reasons for that. And so teaching people about which investments kind of resonate with some of us more and why, and how can we learn about these things and become very educated. I also like helping people learn about not like just tax strategies, but how do you no longer abdicate responsibility to your CPA, but actually know how to drive the relationship with your accounting team so that you are not just relying on what they tell you, but you're pushing the envelope in saving tax and managing those sorts of decisions.
Yeah. What type of investments do you like?
I have done very well with real estate. We have had all different sorts. So we've done real estate developing, land ownership, buying and selling land, commercial building, residential development. And a lot of times my husband and I, he's a general contractor, will build a house, live in it for a few years, sell it, and be able to take advantage of tax code that allows us to net $500,000 without any income tax being paid. So we've done a lot of different things. We also have Airbnbs in Sedona, but right now, because of the way that we're looking at our lives, we want more freedom. We are moving a lot into syndicated deals where we're not actually the one managed, where there's no active investing. It's more of a passive strategy, but when you pick the right passive strategy, you can make more in those than you do in active real estate management. And so that's what I've been focused on lately.
That sounds so difficult, especially these days with a lot of uncertainty since COVID. It feels like the real estate market has been crazy and who knows, it's going down, it's going up. How do you deal with the fears and hesitations when it comes to when you look at the quote unquote reality of what is.
Real estate's not that different than stock and bond investing, where it's about diversification. You just don't want all your money in one project or one type of investing. Commercial, and we sold our commercial building last year because I didn't really enjoy. We didn't like the management of it, but I was also concerned that commercial real estate was going to start to go through some ups and downs. And that was only one of like 6 different investments. So we still did well, but we got out before I felt like there might be some struggles. So diversification. We don't just do one. We are dabbling in several, and it's also a long-term game, just like the stock market. You don't want to put your money in something that you have to get out, in less than 10 years, for example.
Where do you think the real estate market is heading in the next year or 3 years from now? And I know it's a long-term game, but if you look at, okay, let's say 5 years from now, do you see it going down? Do you see it going up? What's your intuition tells you?
My intuition tells me that we are not going to have some huge correction like we had in 2008. I think that collectively in the United States, there are not enough homes being built fast enough to support the people who are wanting to buy homes. And so residential real estate is most likely going to at least stay steady. Like, it's not going to have these swings that we've had over the past few years, but I think it's fine. It's hard to say what's going to happen with interest rates because it's so controlled and reflective of the inflation and all these things going on. But the way I look at it is I like real estate. It's done great for us. If you have the opportunity to buy real estate, whether it be for your home or for an investment, don't be irresponsible. Don't, try to get a deal, but there are always opportunities out there in so many different ways. And, it's just like stock investing. The best time to invest would have been 20 years ago. The next best time is right now. And it's not changing anytime soon. I'm not worried about it.
And when you look at a good investment, do you do like something spiritual where you check within when you check with your intuition, or do you do some really calculated choices? Do you take calculated choices or intuitive choices or a mix of both? And how do you do that?
It's definitely a mix of both, because many of our projects we've lived in or we're willing to live in. It's got to feel good. Where the location of it, what does it look like? Like, I have had great success knowing that I'm making a decision for myself personally. Like, would I live in that house? Is it going to be comfortable? Is it safe? Like, all the things that I use to make a decision personally have served me well because I am impeccable in my taste in the places that I like to live. Tahoe, Sedona. Like, we're very, we lead first with our interests, what's important to us, and that has done very well for us. Now, it can be there are tons of real estate investors that all that matters are the numbers. I'm not that person. Like, I look at it like I like to have many different uses. When we bought the commercial building, I was like, it was also in Sedona, and I'm like, okay, if we didn't get a renter, could I move my business into that business and make it work? I want to look at all the scenarios, and then I'm like, great, I got this covered. Like, I'm risk averse. I like to know that I can cover all the things that could go wrong. I'm a very female investor, is how I would say it. We sort of look at things that way. We like it that way. We like it to be safe. We like to sleep at night. Like, I'm not a huge risk taker, and yet it's still done. We've done very, very well, even without taking huge risks.
Yeah, I've heard that women invest better than men because they don't have that like gambling ego about them. They're a little more grounded. Plus, anything you do that comes from the heart and from intuition should be a really great outcome. What do you do every day to go in to connect?
So I've had a daily meditation practice for almost, 24 years now. I started meditating when I was 8 years old because my dad got involved in transcendental meditation. But at that time, it'd be like, he used it as kind of like if I was in trouble, he'd be like, go meditate. And I was like, I don't want to meditate. You're mean. And so it was so funny because when I came back around to meditation many years later, I realized that it changed everything for the better in my life. And I've continued it, all these years. And even if it's 5 minutes or it's 2 hours, there's always time for it. And it's evolved so much over the years, but the practice that even at the most recent level is so sublime and so subtle that I wouldn't have understood it, 25 years ago. And it's even hard to explain to people at times. But I guess that refinement over years and years and years of figuring out what works and what really helps me to be, the most present, loving person, I could possibly be, all centers around the alignment that occurs in my meditation practice.
When you get an insight, do you hear it? Do you see it? How does it happen for you?
Because I do this work with my clients, I know that I'm clairaudient, meaning I hear things. I'm also very tactical. So sometimes I'll, clairvoyant. So I'll see pictures or I'll see images. But I think it's clairaudient, clairvoyant, clairsentient. So I have experiences in my body, chills, shakes, different experiences. So probably those three are the big ones.
When you work with your client and do you hear or see a vision of them being mega successful or getting over their blocks? Like, do you see them as a fulfilled potential?
I see that with everyone. What my clients come to me for and what I'm known for is I can figure out, well, it's not really me, but what I'm shown is the weakest link in a human. In that, like, what is the thing that's keeping them from that state? So mostly unconscious, but it's easy because I've done this for so long to bring that unconscious thing into conscious awareness and then help people move through it. But that's what I think my specialty is.
How do you do that? How do you go into the subconscious mind and seeing that thing?
Yeah, it's a combination of listening, but I do that. So I have questions. When I was writing my book, The Mindful Millionaire, I had been doing this with hundreds of people, and it was funny but it wasn't like a science yet. And so in order to write my book, what I ultimately figured out is that there was a process. I just needed to unpack that process. I needed to figure out what that process was. And so in the course of writing the book, it kind of came to me. But there's a series of questions that I can ask someone about money and their relationship with money. And in the course of that, it will show me where they're struggling with patterns of lack. And again, it's often not about money, but it's showing up with money. So I just use that as a thread. It's like the golden thread that uncovers, that ties me into everything else that's going on in their life that's related to that's causing them to not be at their fullest potential.
Got it. What's the first step for anyone who's listening right now to connect to more abundance, to maybe look inside and see what's holding them back and get better or connect to more abundance again?
Yeah. A first step would be to look at what's the story that you're telling yourself about money. Like very simply, what's that story? So an example would be, and oftentimes it relates to things that happened, in our home, right, growing up. So the story that I'm telling myself is that this is super common one for people who don't have as much money as they'd like, is when I get money, it will be taken away from me. It will slip through my fingers. It will be gone before I know it, like, and that is a huge story. Like, I just said it in a couple seconds, but yet that story can dictate the whole life for someone around money. So what's that core story that you just keep telling yourself consciously or unconsciously again and again? Because once you know that story, what I want everyone to know is it is just a story. It's basically bullshit, but you're believing in it. And because you're believing in it, you're keeping it alive. And you are the only person that can change it. But you got to know what that story is to be able to begin to question the assumptions of that story.
So you know the story, is knowing enough? How do you make the switch?
Yeah, for some people it's enough, but the people that I work with, it isn't enough just to see it. There has to be a form of healing and forgiveness, whether it be for yourself or for other people involved. There has to be a series of taking ownership of and ultimately forgiving yourself for bad decisions, that maybe got you in trouble, or for other people. But if we do not forgive, we will keep acting like we're in a loop, and we'll go through it over and over and over again. And I've developed ability to go into these very old stories in this life and in past lives, which will just kind of throw everybody for a little bit of a, but
not this audience.
Sometimes it's this life. Okay. Sometimes I would say the majority of our stuff is in this life. But what happened several years ago is I started to notice that there were some times where we just couldn't get to the pattern. I couldn't find it. And I ended up, getting certified as a past life regression, hypnosis, specialist, what have you. And it was so fascinating because sometimes when we did that, then we could find out things that were happening in this life that were related to it or keeping the story alive. But what's so cool about past lives is that, again, if you don't forgive it in that past life, like you being that person, it will still keep replicating itself in this life. So it's the same theme, but what I've learned is how to help someone actually go through that process of forgiveness in a very short amount of time, so that by the time we notice it, it's gone within 20, 30, 40 minutes and never to be seen again. Like, you can't even remember what it was, just because I've just done so many of them.
What is a cool story when it comes to past life regression? Something that maybe surprised you, or people go way deep and way back to places that are not even like on this earth?
The hypnosis that I do is focused on planet Earth, right, in human form, because it's a lot easier to take those than something else. So it's very directory. So I will say that. But I think it's always easiest to just use some of my past lives because I can speak to it with such clarity. When I was writing the Mindful Millionaire book, I saw that there was a belief system that I would be killed if I started to reveal some of the things that were coming through me, because a lot of the book was channeled and I was getting really scared and kind of cutting off what was coming through and just like dried up. And I went to the woman who had taught me and I said, I need your help. There's something here. And we went back a couple thousand years to a time, whether it was in Italy or Greece, who knows, but it was a very rough time. And I came into this past life realizing that my father was dying and I was going to become sort of the ruler of this area. And I had a younger brother. And what ended up happening was I was ruling. When my dad died, I took over and I was ruling from a very benevolent place. And everything in this kingdom was falling apart because it was a time of brutality. I couldn't manage what was happening and things. And my mom was scared for everyone's life. My brother was scared. And even my wife was scared about the way I was ruling. And ultimately, they conspired to kill me so my brother could take over. And it was so powerful because when I came out of that past life and forgave my wife and my brother and my mom and myself, and I saw that it was only back then I was killed for my benevolent kind of sharing of these ideas. But that was 2,000 years ago. Like right now, I wasn't going to be killed for sharing these things. And I kid you not, all of these beliefs, all of the blocks, everything, an hour and a half in that hypnosis, and it was all cleared. And I was back to finishing my book. And now, we've sold more than 10,000 copies. It's a bestseller in carried in bookstores, all over the country and in several other countries. Like, it's crazy what's happened with that book. And yet I couldn't have done it if I had stopped with what was happening for me. I was just totally frozen.
I did a past life regression. The first session was amazing. And then on the second session, I came to a place where like there was a loss of a son. And that was about 2 years ago. And I remember for 3 days after that, I was raging. I was so angry. I yelled at my son, who was like a tiny being, like, and I don't, I'm a conscious parent, like I don't do this, like not like that. Um, and that scared the heck out of me, and I said, no more ever. I'm doing past life regression. This was not good. This made me feel bad. It didn't resolve anything. It just brought something really dark from some other lifetime that I'm not even aware. It just it wasn't that great for me. So what do you think happened there?
You don't have the same level of control. And this is one of the reasons why I'm very, very diligent of like who gets to do it and who doesn't, because you don't have a lot of control over what stories you're going to see. So in this case, there are some things. Hypnosis is all about the seeds that get planted. So one of the seeds that gets planted multiple times through the process is you will only see stories and experiences that you can witness and heal from and ultimately integrate back into your life. Nothing else will be seen but these experiences that are relevant to what you're looking for, that are going to be understandable, that you will be able to heal from and integrate. Now, that doesn't solve all your problems, but the more adamant I am when I'm taking somebody into a hypnosis, the more likely that is going to actually happen, because everything is about the seeds that are being planted of what's actually happening. Another thing, Orion, that's really important that I've learned, because I've done hundreds of these, is that sometimes you need time to come out of a life and process it before you go back into what you were holding on to reach a state of forgiveness, because it can be so shocking that it's not going to happen in that session. Like, there's not enough time, but there can be an invitation to return back to that place, even if it's only from conscious awareness, very, very light hypnosis, to invite, what did you learn from this? Why did you need to see this? What needs to be understood? And what are you ready to forgive? And if you don't get to that stage, you're right, you will hold on to those things, and that's not a healthy place to be.
Yeah, no, that was not good. Do you know the book Many Lives, Many Masters?
Yeah.
So she was a student of that, I forgot his name, that doctor.
Yeah, Brian Weiss.
Yes, I would imagine, like, I think she learned from him or something like that, that she would have the best scripts, but something went off. Like, what do you do when something like that like goes off? Because every time you deal with a subconscious mind, and I do hypnosis myself, a lot of things can come up. For me, since I'm not going to that practitioner, can I put myself in hypnosis to heal that part and just go there?
Most definitely. Yes. I mean, if you feel empowered to use the hypnosis that you have learned to take yourself back to what is conscious, you can invite those same sorts of questions. And I'm happy to share some of those questions that you could ask that are helpful to ask and surrender into what are the messages that are helpful about this, and where are the opportunities for forgiveness, right? Because it's in all these different directions that sometimes what I've learned about forgiveness is until it's not just a blanket situation. Many times forgiveness is like a chain reaction, and it's who starts first is very important. And when I'm doing, because again, so much of my work is around this forgiveness, I'm looking for who, and this is given to me, but I'm asking the question, who needs to be forgiven first before you could forgive this? And once you get into that chain, it becomes easy. But if you try to take it out of order, it's impossible.
So much work to be done. It's like I've been doing self-development my whole life. I've been like going to a bazillion seminars. I worked with the greatest people ever. I still do the work. I still have coaches, and it just seems like it's endless. Like how deep down the rabbit hole you want to go. It's pretty amazing. I can also say that without doing all this work, I wouldn't have the incredible life that I have today, and I'm very grateful for everything that I have. But sometimes you look at yourself and you're like, I've done so much work. Now what? More? More?
I mean, it's a good question to pose, because I think that I studied Buddhism for many years in the beginning, and there was a state called no more learning. And it's always been in my conscious awareness. And I've entered into that place. I can't tell you how long it's been since I've been there, but it's more than a year, more than a few years of no more learning. Does it mean that you're not open and receptive? You know, you are still going to be that, but there's a very big difference, because I think that the point isn't to uncover all of the trauma points and release them. The point is to realize that you are not any of the trauma. You are none of it. You are beyond that. You are, peace and love. And every story is just something that can be honored and respected, but never believed. And once you don't believe any of those things anymore, you're free and you don't need anything. You're perfect and complete as you are. Getting there, right? I've been on this journey for almost 25 years. Like, getting there isn't an easy thing, but there is a time. And if your teachers are not encouraging that moment, they might not be the right teachers for you, especially if you've been on the journey. I'm not saying this to you, but to anyone listening. I don't listen to anyone anymore other than that voice inside. And the voice inside is God. I mean, it's God, divine energy, source, divine source, like whatever, not this person outside. This person does not exist. It's the energy of all that is. That once you tap into that, you do not need to go looking for more of your trauma points. They will, I believe in Shakti, this energy that awakens inside of us, and the prana, the energy that's flowing through everything. Like, when you're ready, it will show you all that you need to see to let go of. But it's all not true anyways. It's just revealing the untruths so that you can surrender into the truth, which is with us all along.
Yeah, I think the key word is surrender, which is like every time I surrendered in my life, something incredible happened, and I still learn this lesson. It is so hard to surrender. Like, I want to control the outcomes. I want to control how everybody else feels. Even though it comes from good intentions, sometimes you just have to let like what Dr. Wayne Dyer said, let go and let God. and just allow it to flow through you. But man, it's hard, especially when you just want to do, move forward. And every once in a while I stop, I look back and I'm like, okay, God, you take it, because I've tried. And yeah. Do you feel like God is your business partner?
I don't necessarily think of it in that way, but yes, when I'm asked that way, yeah, like probably, hmm. What I will say is that business has been a very interesting journey for me because I think that oftentimes there's grasping inside of business, like the idea of business, the stories that I have received about business. And I think that even letting go of the idea of business has been more helpful for me that it just is.
As
And
soon as
that,
I said the word business, it felt like contracting. I don't know why. Um, I
yeah,
get what you're saying when you just see it as flow, because there is such a big in many people's minds, such a big separation between making money and spirituality. Not a lot of people bridge the two, but when you bridge the two, then all the stories around the word business, they are not the same. The word business represents something completely different. So what business means to you, let's use that word.
I've come to the place of understanding that the greatest business I could ever run is just being me.
I like that.
That I am of greater service in my whole state of Leisa in this life. Like, the small Lisa and the big Lisa, however you want to describe it. But that the more I just surrender into trusting that um, I'm enough, that there is enough, and that the people who are drawn to that energy will find their way to me or not, and that it's all good and okay. Uh, I've realized that that's the only way that I can operate now. And if for some reason I didn't have enough money to live, I actually would be more comfortable getting a traditional job, than to have my money be dependent on anything that we're talking about here. Because I don't know if it will produce or not produce. There is no expectation. If it comes, it's great. If it doesn't, it's great. Um, if I need to get a job to pay the bills, then I would do that. I think it'd be pretty fun to work at Trader Joe's, quite frankly. They seem really happy there, and I love their food. So I just don't want, what business can no longer mean grasping, but it did for many, many years.
That is so profound. That's deep. Yeah, wow. That's amazing. It's it's like with do you know the story The Alchemist?
Oh, yeah.
Where he needs to go all the way to Mecca to find his treasure, just to go back and find that it's in his backyard. Sorry if I reveal the story to a lot of people. But yeah, read The Alchemist. Or actually, I listened to it recently on audio, and it's amazing. So that it seems like that's kind of like your journey, and you're back home, and you know that home is where you are. That's beautiful.
I think there's something that came to me when we started talking about business too, was also like a very practical, the 80-20 rule, right? The Pareto principle. It's so funny because even Paul Coelho, I don't know if you know the story, but my editor was Paul's editor for many years. And I think he was the one who told me the story, if I'm not mistaken. But that book did not take off. It wasn't like a runaway bestseller. It took maybe 10 years before it sort of took off. And he was inspiring me about my book. I was like, I like this kind of inspiration. And he said, Chelsea Clinton got a copy of The Alchemist, and she read it, and she told her dad that he needed to read the book. And he read the book and fell in love with the book. And he was a president at the time, and he invited Paul to the White House, and for like a dignitary whatever. And all these powerful, influential people are at this dinner, and Bill's got a big voice. And at one point he's like, "Is that Paul Coelho?" Like, he's shouting in front of all these people. I want to meet that guy. He wrote like the best book. And so everybody wanted to know what the book was, and right, who was this guy? And that it was that sort of tipping point that allowed this book to take off. And the reason I love that story is that we have absolutely no idea where our work is going to show up. Like, all we can do is like put ourselves to task of like, if that book is, wanting to be birthed through you. And for me, it was like 5 years and 1 million words I had to write to get to the 90,000 words. And having all these magical people, like my agent showed up and said, "I want to help you write a book." And I was like, "I'm not that great of a writer." And she's like, "But there's something here. I want to help you. Will you let me help you?" And it turned out she's one of the most successful agents in the world. And she was like, "I never do this." And I'm like, "Okay, you can help me." And then, the same thing happened when we sold the book to St. Martin's Press, and just magic every step of the way that I could never have controlled. That's the kind of life. Like, I don't know if it will happen or not, but it's not going to be because of me efforting into the magic. It won't happen that way.
You got to do as much as you can, and then you just let go. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Before we say goodbye for now, what are your 3 top tips to living a stellar life?
Be yourself, trust yourself, and love everything and everyone. Love what is.
I like that. And where can people find you, and where can they get your book? How can they register to your events and seminars?
So you could go to Wealth Clinic, WEALTH clinic.com, all one word, and then /vision. And that will get you a meditation, the first chapter of my book, some other goodies. And yeah, hit reply. Let me know what you thought of this conversation. I read all of my emails, and I'd love to be in connection with folks.
Amazing. Thank you, Leisa. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, listeners. Remember to be yourself, trust yourself, and love what is, and have a stellar life. This is Orion. Until next time.